Hello and welcome to another episode of Our Own Devices with Nandagopal Rajan. And this, as you expected, is Nandagopal Rajan again, another week with another guest. And this time with us is Piyush Singh, who's Senior MD at Accenture, uh, Asia Pacific and LATAM. Uh, Piyush, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
So we are going to talk about something quite interesting, and as all of you have heard over the weeks, we have looked at the impact of the pandemic on a lot of things. See, the pandemic has been an epochal thing in our lives. We don't maybe really realize it, but this is it's almost like a before and after point in our lives. Like you have a life, and you had everything before the pandemic, and you have everything post pandemic. So one of the things that Accenture has a lot of insight into is on how consumer behavior, for instance, has changed in the pandemic, and we have seen how your tech lives have changed, how a lot of things have changed, and we have a lot of knowledge because of the kind of data we crunch into everything these days. So Piyush, the top headline: how has consumer preferences changed? In the time of the pandemic, have more people really gone online? Has a lot of behavior changed?
Yeah, no, look, I mean, first of all, I 100% agree with your presentation of the pandemic of a before and after event of our lives, right? So I think it's a very well said point there. And in terms of consumer preference, it has had two different kinds of manifestation. See, for a very long time, we have lived in that world where we've all forecasted through different mechanisms, a digital uptake of consumer preference. But what the pandemic, number one, did was it added a whole lot of fragility to preference. Consumers were changing their preferences at a far more rapid pace because of the uncertainties, right? So it was, the immediate response was everybody went online because the physical world shut down, right? So there was a whole moving online, and making sure that there was availability of a whole lot of products and services that you thought of earlier not consuming, or organizations with which you never thought of interacting online, that went online. That ranged from your large corporate relationship to your kirana store relationship, everything, right? Very wide ranging. But then what also happened was this what that did was, because that pace of change of uptake was so quick, it brought down the inertia of change in consumers. So as the pandemic has ebbed and flowed, the consumer preferences have changed and moved as rapidly, right? So I think two phenomena. Of course, number one, a massive uptick in a movement to a more digital interaction with providers, as well as digital consumption, on one hand. Second, a very rapidly changing dynamics of consumers. And a result of that, in that before and after statement that you made, is that today, when you look at it, I do believe there is also a very big phygital element that is coming back. Now, we use the word phygital as a combination of physical and digital. And earlier, the swim lanes of physical and digital were far more demarcated. Because of this rapid changing preferences, today they are far more integrated, right? So I think we, as you may have come across, we did one survey where almost a 50% intermix is now existing, where consumers went, looked at stuff online, may have come and experienced the stuff in a physical world, and then gone back to a payment mechanism online, or the other way around. So yeah, very very big uptake of physical interaction and consumption, right? And I emphasize on both of those points, a great degree of dynamism and change in preferences, and the third part, to a much greater intermix of physical and digital to a phygital experience, is the way I'm seeing this play out.
It's a very interesting concept. I've not heard this before, phygital. But even if you look at how we interact, how we buy things, even offline at a very basic level, the payments are now mostly online. Even if you are in a shop, even if you're just having, I took a flight yesterday. I bought a coffee, but I paid using UPI, and even that is a huge transition. And UPI is something everybody uses now. Even if you're taking an auto, you're buying just a coconut on the roadside, you're still paying by UPI, and that I think
Right.
has been a huge, it's been a huge fundamental shift, right? On how
I agree.
how we interact. So
I agree, and that's why I said, that's why I said that we can't miss the point that your shift of your interaction, a part of your interaction and consumption to digital, was not just with a large corporation. It is with your local kirana store. It is with your auto driver. It is with your coconut seller. Everybody, right? And there's little doubt that the backbone of the payment infrastructure that we have laid out in the country has been a massive enabler to that digital uptake. Right, without that backbone of digital payment infrastructure, this would not have been possible at all. Right, combined with also, I would have to say, the bringing in of the whole lot of people into the organized banking sector.
yeah,
Right, so people I mean, UPI is not possible without a bank account, right? So I mean, obviously, having enough number of people accept bank accounts, and that's where you have to give credit to the financial services sector, right? That how they have gone about aggressively bringing in the adoption of more and more people into the organized sector. That's not been an easy task. So a lot of credit to the banking sector to do that, all the way from a regulator to the commercial banks.
yeah. No, I had a very interesting conversation with a roadside vendor recently, and and he said he makes about 800 rupees every day, and most of his payment is not coming in cash. So he said at the end of the day, he's actually spending less money on liquor and things like that because he has to go through the UPI to even pay because it's gone to his account. He doesn't have physical cash with him, which would have been easier for him to spend. So I think it has it's going to have bigger impact on the society also because you have more people who are into banking, into a formal economy in a sense, and that's for us to see in the long term.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the greater impact, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is a massive multiplier effect, right? Because first of all, when you come into this segment, your ability to get protection, first of all,
Yes,
health protection, or other kinds of
correct.
protection insurance products becomes much easier.
Yeah,
Number two, you know look, this is a very, I mean, the particularly the segment that you spoke about is a very large segment that the commercial banks are very keen to penetrate to help uplift,
yeah,
right? But the challenge has always been available of structured data, right? So when you now have got structured data available, right, to as the payments come, go online, then that becomes a massive benefit as well, right? So then tomorrow what you will have is these people who never thought they were credit worthy, right? They were so far at best they thought they were ability to accept payment. Tomorrow they will be in the position to start to accept, accept, or be available for credit.
yeah,
That can then propel their business so much more.
yeah. The all of us have seen how the consumer has made the transition, and maybe quite quickly. But on the company side, how has this transition happened? We have seen a lot of companies who could go online overnight, even a small kirana store for that matter. But it's not been easy for everybody, right? Because there is a lot of muscle memory, there is a lot of resistance internally in large corporations against doing a lot of things. So how have you worked with those people? What are insights in that space?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess we need a lot of time if we had to go through that
But
part of the
headline points.
I agree. So that's why I was trying to sort of buy myself some thinking time to see how I can summarize it for something more meaningful. But look, I think first of all, let's start with corporations, larger organizations, and I think it's a mixed bag. I've said this before. You know, usually when people look at corporations, they try to categorize in them into sectors. Say, okay, which sector has done well, which sector hasn't done well. And my viewpoint always is, no, it's not about sectors. It is about individual organizations within those sectors, right? And when I don't see any exceptions really where there are sectors in which organizations have got leaders and laggards, and the leaders are a small minority. And who are these leaders? Those who have made the conscious attempt to undertake a sustained transformation, Because look, I mean, we spoke just now about a very fast changing customer dynamic. So it can't be that your own response to that fast changing customer dynamic is a one time, or a very narrow response. This is what we can Accenture call enterprise wide transformation. This requires starts all the way from how you interact with your customer on the then comes to how do you design your products in which is fast enough, right, to the changing dynamics of the customer. How do you redesign your supply chain in order to procure and manufacture and assemble these products, right? And then how do you ensure that you're providing the same digital experience that you want your organization to provide to your customer, to your own enterprise and your workforce, right, to able to drive the efficiency of digital. If you don't undertake this end-to-end transformation, partial transformations will make you more inefficient, right? And don't forget, the big peril of the digital world is that on the front end, a half-hearted experience is much more amplified than in the offline world or in a physical world, right? Because it gets amplified. People have got stronger voices, much bigger voices, right? The second part is, it is difficult to spot inefficiencies within your enterprise as it goes digital unless and until you undertake of enterprise-wide transformation. Yeah. And therefore, the other big challenge, of course, in all of this is, if you want to undertake enterprise-wide transformation, is talent, right? And that talent journey and talent question again starts from the top, right? Because let's face it, we have got our leaders at the top who themselves have not been the consumer of digital capabilities or technologies or digital business models, not technology, the way of working digitally, with have not. So how do you ensure that you transform from the top and then go along that transformation journey through your organization, right? If you start with the assumption that the top is okay and you have to start from the rest of the workforce, again that will fail, right? So I think those, I mean, number one, not there are leaders and laggards in every sector. Leaders are a small minority, unfortunately. The leaders are the ones who are undertaking enterprise wide transformations. They are the ones who understand that the front to back has to change, not just one part. And in doing so, one of the biggest challenges is talent.
Also this point of consumer experience, right, in the front end, as you said, it just gets amplified. But I've also heard from a few experts that how that experience is often compared. So you are comparing to your best experience, and every other experience is compared to that. For instance, if it's a online experience, people are usually comparing it to how easy is it on Amazon. You could be buying anything, you could be even doing a banking transaction, but you're always comparing it to your best your best experience. So in a way, if you're looking at it in another aspect, everybody needs to be as good as the best. Like, is that a challenge?
Look, it is a challenge and it is also an opportunity, because see, the good thing is, with a little bit of freedom to be cavalier, you know digital is quite democratic.
Yes.
Nobody has got such a secret capability that you cannot buy, implement, or make happen. Yeah. So the opportunity is that it's not that you can't get there. See, earlier, there was if you wanted to, I mean, on manufacturing, the capital adequacy requirement of manufacturing was so massive that even if you tried, you could not get there if you're a new entrant, right? Thankfully, digital, with its ability to offer more compressed transformation, compressed change, change very quickly, and access to technology which is not prohibitively costly, gives you the opportunity to get there. So that is a very big advantage. But the challenge becomes when you look at it as a technology problem. See, it is not a technology problem. It is, at the end of the day, technology is only an enabler to your business model, right? And the challenge is, can you transform the business model? And this is my Lisa will probably start yawning soon, because I may have overused this example in the last few weeks. This is where I always go back to my gold to diaper example. See, when you look at it from a technology perspective, what happens? You say, okay, I've got data now. You are a, and I've got data about you, and I can use that data to understand your life and do whatever I want with it, right? If you look at it from a not only technology, a data scientist problem and a technology problem, what do? You can say, I have figured out that 60% of people coming to buy my gold jewelry are also people who are expecting expansion of their family or are pregnant, right? So you know what? I think I can sell them diapers.
The
The
cohort.
reality is that is never going to happen. Nobody coming to a store to buy gold is going to buy a diaper. But if you look at it, technologists will, and a data scientist and a technologist can come together and say, I can tell you they need a diaper. Why don't we sell a diaper? And I can also make the diaper available. So it is, at the end of the day, unless and until you understand your own business of goal in this example and say, okay, how do I ensure that what is the adjacency of my consumer that he would like to buy or she would like to buy, and then how do I use technology to make that seamless experience of that product easy, right? Then it will work. Otherwise, today's world, as I said, the combination of data scientists and technologists can make anything available to anybody.
So as a lot of these companies make this transition towards going online, they're also becoming data led or data driven, or at least companies with a lot of data, right? And as you said lightly, and I'm talking a lot here from my personal experience, is that there is a lot of great data out there, but the people who are actually working on the data don't have the context of the industry you are in, because they've worked on data but they don't know how to take, so how do you make sense of that data? Is that, as in, the big data problem will be to making sense of the data, not having the data or being able to work on it, right? Yeah, but
So I think
there is a problem at scale now. How do you solve for this?
So I think we have, again, we put this out in the public. This is, that the transition is now from big data to small data.
Yeah,
Okay, so look, if you look at the life of the data journey in the world, there was a time when you did not have any data available. Then there was a time that you could not store and process data that was available. Now you got excess amounts of data available about your customer. So the big thing is going to be about how do you ensure that you're applying your business acumen to only send your systems and your sensors to collect the data that is relevant, for your business adjacencies, for your business functioning, right? And then only grab use of that data and process and analyze and generate the insights of that data. And the most important thing, well, one that you is then digitally consume that data. See, because even if you go from big data to small data, you have now figured out the right thing that you'll sell with the gold, if I may carry on that analogy. But if you're going to consume it, too late, for example, you may decide that, I may want to sell insurance with the gold purchase, as an example, but if you turn up 2 months after that, is because, you're not digitally consuming it, because, somebody's come up with that insight that has gone through a organizational hiatus and come back down the food chain. Pointless. So yeah, they the world needs to must move from big data to small data that is relevant for business adjacencies and the efficient functioning of your own organization, and on digital consumption of insights of that small data. Those are the two things that will define differentiation. Access to data is no more a differentiation. It is available and it is costly. Don't forget,
yeah,
a lot of data is available very cheaply, but it is in such high quantity
yeah.
that people don't realize how much money that they're overspending by accessing lots of data cheaply.
So, other words, in other words, would it be right to say that companies were able to find that needle in the haystack, and then align their entire business to build and to get to the needle? Is that the right way to go about it? How would you, you know?
I see. The thing that I would add in your statement that you would make, you will not have to don't do organizations cannot go spending finding that needle in the haystack,
Yeah,
right? It is going to be trying the adjacencies and using your data and insights to see whether you are able to furnish a particular need or not.
yeah,
You will never get to nirvana. See, the thing is, the most times the killer use case of the adjacency of your product, you may not have figured it out. The advantage that you take is, how do I use the world of compressed transformation and data, which is what I've got all the insights. I quickly consume that insight, offer it to the consumer quickly, and then see what they're telling me about it, and then go away. Like, this is a borrowed example. When you, I don't know whether you heard of Ford trucks. Ford makes trucks, biggest category of its sales in the world, right? F-150, biggest selling truck in the world, and Ford recently launched its electric version. And one of its biggest use cases that has become most popular is the use of the trucks to light up the houses, right? Because the rural consumer, who's a truck user, faces a lot of outages because of bad weather, extreme
Yeah.
weather. Now, you could not have that, as you said, that needle in the haystack could not have been found sitting in a dark room by a data scientist or analyst. But is the idea is to compress your transformation, put your products out in terms of digital engagement with your consumer, and start to learn what signals they are giving, and then consume that digitally. Because if you don't consume it quickly, then the consumer may go by. But, I told you what I wanted. You never you did not come back to me. I moved on. So when I say digital consumption, if the customer is giving you signals that I'm wanting this use case, how do you amplify that in your marketing? How do you amplify that in your supply chain? Because then you must consume product, procure that part of that, right? Of that product set in much greater than that. So how do you align your full enterprise transformation to that, digital signal that the customer is giving you, and then providing that back to the customer?
So, if I can ask you one last thing, like for the companies, big and small, which are making this transition, you know, uh, uh, if there are a few points of advice that you could give them, what would it be? What are the things they have to do? What are the things they should avoid?
So look, some of it we may have already spoken about a little
Right.
bit, but there'll be a repetition in there. But number one, as I said, is going to be, it is an enterprise transformation. Don't do it piecemeal.
Hmm.
If you do it piecemeal, you will fail.
Yeah.
Number two, it's not a technology transformation; it's a business model transformation with an eye to where your customer is changing, and your customer here. What is changing is not just the retail customer, even when a corporation, which is your consumer of your services, is also changing, right? So whether you, so number two is that, right, is making sure. Number three is going to be, look, even in the digital space, there are frontiers that are opening up that are going to drive even more rapid transformation. So metaverse, for example, which is a manifestation of a greater influence of a digital virtual reality, augmented reality mix, which I think is going to be. So keep that in mind as you're building future capabilities. Don't ignore that. Don't be stuck in just today, because that tomorrow is arriving much more quickly. Number four, sustainability, right? You don't design your new digital enterprise without making sure that it is far more sustainable, because consumer preferences, as well as regulatory mindsets are going to change rapidly to and to make sure that you are that way. So I think these are the forces that you have to come. And of course, as I said, last but not least, none of it can happen without talent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So unless and until you bring your talent along, unless and until you, as the head of the organization, believe you need to transform yourself, because none of us are fully up to speed with where the world is going, either in terms of our customers' preferences or in terms of the way we can serve those preferences. So that mindset of continuous reinvention of talent right from the stop will be the bedrock on which all transformation will be built.
Thanks a lot, Piyush, for being on the show. That was a very insightful look at how consumers are changing in the pandemic and how the companies have to change, to be at pace with the customers. Thanks a lot for being on the show.
Very happy to be here, and it was a good discussion. So thank you for having me.
If only we had more time for this conversation. But we will have a great guest again next time. You are listening to Our Own Devices with Nandagopal Rajan. We are everywhere you listen to your podcast.